I also read that there was an issue where a couple days later, the police allowed somebody who was very influential in Sam's family. Remind me, was he a lawyer? I forget. But anyways, the cousin, the uncle, the judge. Okay. So the judge came into the house, we're talking about the same situation, with his son, which was a cousin or whatever. And they took 2 computers. They said they didn't take a purse, but there was things that they were accused of taking. And the excuse was they took 2 computers because Sam needed his computer. They didn't know which computer was what. And then they ended up giving it to the police. I'm curious if the police tested it to see if anything was removed off of it. I'm like just so curious about why they were allowed to do certain things, yet the parents weren't allowed to go in and get the journal. And by the way, when was the journal taken?
That's a good question. It probably would have been taken on the 28th or 29th. So what happened here is the timeline's pretty important. The 26th is when Ellen died.
Okay.
The 27th is when Ellen's autopsy was performed and Marlon Osborne goes, "You got a homicide here." So the police are scrambling going, we need to get a search warrant because we've released the crime scene. So they get a search warrant. They don't get back to the apartment until the 28th. Meanwhile, on the 27th, Sam Goldberg's family calls the apartment and says, "We need to get access to the apartment to get a suit for Sam to wear to the funeral." Remember, everybody involved in this is Jewish. Ellen was going to have her funeral quick,
right?
According to their custom, right?
Right.
So he's like, "We need a suit. We need to get back into the apartment for a suit," which, by the way, is again crap. These are wealthy. Go buy a suit if you can't get, But so the apartment manager calls the police and says, "Hey, can I let them in?" And the police say, "Yeah, there's no crime there." And she asks, "Well, what do we do as far like it's still bloody and everything in there?" And so the police gave her the number for a professional crime scene cleanup company. She provides that number to Sam Goldberg's family, who have to pay for it, and they get that place cleaned lickety split that day. Professional crime scene cleanup was in there cleaning.
Wow.
Once it's clean, they go in, they grab Sam's suit. They also grab Ellen's phone, 2 of Ellen's laptops, her purse, a bunch of other stuff. And then the following day, police come in with the search warrant and go, "What happened here? Everything's clean in here." "Well, you guys told us we could clean it up. And then, where are her digital, where's her computer? Where's her phone?" Mm-hmm. "Oh, Judge Schwartzman has them." So the next day they have to go to Judge Schwartzman's and get that stuff. So they didn't have any of that stuff for the first, it was the 3rd day that they finally got her laptop and stuff. But so there's no indication they searched it. There's no indication they searched anything on her laptop or phone.
Right. Okay. So those are the questions going forward, like what was searched on the phone? Was there or will there be in the future? And if so, was there anything that was deleted or gotten rid of in general, especially on her phone? The same thing with her journal. When did the police take it? Did Sam's family or anyone get to see it before to see if there was anything incriminating on it? And then they decided to give it up when they saw that there wasn't. I don't know. Those would be the questions that I had. And also, when did they get the knife? Listen, if you're going to stab somebody, you probably are smart enough to use gloves or whatever, but he lived in the apartment. So his fingerprints on it are not uncommon, or DNA on it. So, again, I'm not in forensics. I'm just thinking. So all that.
And it was a kitchen knife. It was like a Cutco, just kitchen knife. So it would stand to reason that his DNA and his fingerprints would be on it.
Of course.
In fact, I would be more suspicious if they're not on it.
That's the whole point. Because if it's been completely, that's why I asked if he had blood on him, because the only reason you clean up blood is because you don't want anyone to think that you were around it. But he should have had blood on him. If I walked into my house and my fiance was on the floor dead and bloody, I would run over to them and be like, are you still, shake them and touch them, whatever. So you don't stand back and say, "Oh, I don't want anything to do with this." The last thing that I want to bring up that we haven't talked about yet is 911 was not Sam's first call. The first call was to this judge guy.
Sort of. It was to his cousin came in. Kamian Schwartzman, who is also a lawyer, and Judge Schwartzman's son. He called Kamian, he talked to him for a little while, and then there were a couple of calls that he missed from Judge Schwartzman. He then took a call from Judge Schwartzman, and then it was only after that call that he called 911. Now, according to the letter that I got from the attorney, that they didn't like my reporting, and so I got a letter from the attorney. They admit that they spoke to Sam, but it was not, but he was still outside the apartment. He was locked out of the apartment when they talked. And they said that they were on the phone with him when he broke down the door and saw Ellen there, and then said, "You need to call 911."
Well, that sounds even more suspicious. What is he calling lawyers for if he just is trying to get in his apartment and his fiance could be in the shower or sleeping?
Yeah, why are you calling your cousin? It's a nor'easter. They live across the city. Are you asking them to help you get into your apartment? Come on, that's just dumb. And it just doesn't hold water to me. The whole, we heard Sam cry out when he saw Ellen on the floor and told him to call 911. No, I mean, when we look at the lock evidence, when we look at the evidence of her body being moved, there being kind of a cleanup. No, I don't buy that explanation at all. And I think it was really unwise of them to even say that in that letter. I thought that was the worst lawyering that I've ever seen.
Absolutely. All right. So now that this case is getting a lot of attention, I mean, it's been on News Nation. I mean, it's been everywhere, but people are really taking an interest in it and want to bring it to light. Is there any way that it can move forward that if somebody with a lot of power says, wait a minute, especially in Philadelphia, Josh Shapiro or, anyone says, wait a minute, we really have to look at this more closely. I'm interested in it. Even somebody in the police department. Or do we now have to go through this Supreme Court to listen to what they say?
No. Wow, that is a good question. Nobody asks the right questions in this case. That was a really good question. Yeah, there is something that can be done right now by somebody who has power, and that is the Chester County DA. The Chester County DA has the file, has the entire file, and should be. So
somebody could reopen this if they so choose. We don't have to wait for the Supreme Court to make a ruling a year from now.
No, they could do that right now. But what happened was when the case was referred out of the AG's office and referred back down to DA Krasner in Philadelphia, law required him to kick it somewhere else, right? He still had that conflict of interest. Mm-hmm. He could have chosen anywhere. He could have chosen like Clarion County or Erie County he could have chosen anywhere, but he chose his next door neighbor, who was a DA named Deb Ryan, who was running for a judgeship. She had political ambitions. So it was referred to a person with political ambitions who was raised in the same area, went to the same synagogue as Sam Goldberg's family. Like, there's so many connections to it. She was elected as a Commonwealth judge, and now there's a new DA, Brian, I can't remember his name right now, but ever since he's taken office, there's just been crickets out of the Chester County's DA's office. So yeah, there it sits, just languishing until somebody powerful enough can get him to do something.
Right. All right. Well, this is very interesting. Hopefully all the new, attention to this case will not go away. People will still keep asking questions and put pressure on someone that has some influence to reopen this case. That would be amazing. Anything else that I'm missing that we should talk about before I let you go?
No, I think we covered it pretty well. Thanks.
Of course. Well, thank you so much. I hope that you come back when there is more to it. But anyone that has more questions, tell them how they can go and find out. You're covering this every week, right? You talk about it? I
cover it a lot, man. So yeah, you can find me on my website, gavinfish.com, or on YouTube at Gavin Fish. It's very easy to find me everywhere.
Awesome. And do you read your DMs? Like, if people have questions, if people have suggestions, where can they reach you?
Yeah, if you go to my website, gavinfish.com, there's a contact page there. You can even reach out to me anonymously, and it's actually anonymous. And that is how a lot of this stuff has kind of moved along. I've had viewers that anonymously reach out to me. But yeah, if you're on Twitter or you're on Instagram, you can DM me, and I take a look at all that too.
Well, and I hope at some point this pressure is going to make some people that are associated with this have to make a statement, whether it be Sam, whether it be Josh Shapiro. I mean, I'm really interested how they can come up with this idea that suicide is the right answer. It just seems far-fetched. And if it is the answer, you would think that they would want to be more transparent about it and say, but guys, this is why we came up with this reasoning, and let me explain it to you so you really get it. You know what I'm saying? It just seems like that would be the way that they would handle it, as opposed to just being silent. Because all that does, in the absence of some acknowledgement, people just come up with a bunch of other ideas, you know?
That's right. Yeah.
Another quick question. Are you covering any other cases that we should be following with you?
Yes. There are several cases that bear the same kind of hallmarks that Ellen's case have. I hate corruption. I freaking hate corruption. And anytime somebody was obviously murdered and somebody is able to make it go away, that bothers me. So there's a case in Minnesota right now where a young man had oil poured on him and he was lit aflame. He died by being burned to death, and they called it a suicide, but the crime scene photos seem to indicate that there was foul play there. So his name was David Elmquist. There's a case in New York State where a young woman who was a heroin addict and she was a sex worker was murdered and shoved into a garbage can and frozen solid in the New York winter. And the ME's office called it an overdose, though she had no metabolites of any drug in her system.
Wow.
There are a lot of cases. If you go to my website, there are so many cases that I care about. I'd love to talk to them sometime.
Amazing. So we're going to take a look at that. I'm sure we're going to have you back on to talk about a couple of these. I really appreciate you. We'll stay in touch.
Thank you very much. I look forward to it.
Thank you.